At age 3, your child has survived the great myelination of its brain. Now it has the faculty of memory it will have for life. Your child starts playing with other children and asks questions. Why? Knowing how your child learns to talk will help you understand how it learns everything. And it will help you give your child the best chance to be a prodigy in music, science, or whatever. In this video, I concentrate on 3 stages of learning. In the first stage, your child copies what is around it. It copies what you say, it copies what you do, it notices your emotional reactions, and it reacts emotionally to everything. Your child's pronunciation gradually improves as it learns to control its voice. Through trial and error, it learns what pronunciation is needed to communicate effectively. I remember my grandmother asking my young brother what he wanted for breakfast. He is 2 years younger than me. I understood my brother perfectly, but my grandmother couldn't make out a word, so I translated from his child speak to adult speak. This got my brother the breakfast he wanted, and I realized, as a child who was not yet 6, that I could understand things that adults cannot. That was a lesson that helped me become a scientist. But what if you want to encourage your child to be a musician? You have to communicate in the language of children, play. Giving your child a glockenspiel, recorder or violin isn't going to teach them very much, except maybe that a recorder makes a great stick to hit the cat or a brother with. If you want your child to be a musical prodigy, you need to play an instrument and make their playing part of a game. You need to encourage them to practice a lot. Tule is a concert guitarist. I'll put a link to her channel in the description below. Her father was a guitarist and encouraged her to play guitar from the age of 4. She played for 2 hours a day. By the age of 5, she had spent more time playing a musical instrument than most people spend in a lifetime. And she had definitely spent more time playing guitar. Her life was surrounded by music, as mine was surrounded by science. Daddy, why is the fire hot?
The fire is hot because Daddy works in a power station. There is a very big fire there. The power station turns the fire into electricity. The electricity runs through wires into our house. Then the bars on this electric fire turn the electricity back into fire, and that makes us warm. Each bar is 1 kilowatt.
This is an explanation a child can mostly understand. It is the start of understanding the conservation of energy. I learned each bar is 1 kilowatt, even though I had no idea what a kilowatt is and couldn't even pronounce it. I just did my best to copy what I was told. The second stage of learning is quite frustrating for parents. Your child has learned to speak by copying adults, so it speaks with perfect grammar. But now it starts making mistakes. This is a good thing, because the mistakes are caused by your child trying to learn the rules of grammar, instead of just repeating phrases parrot fashion. Your child under and overgeneralizes the rules until it gets them right enough. You don't teach your child language. Your child creates its own language that just happens to match yours, more or less. Training your child to play a complicated piece of music might develop technical skill and musical memory, but copying is just the first stage of learning. If your child stops here, it will never be a musician, let alone a concert soloist. Try playing musical call and response with your child. The kid won't get it, but you are using music as an analogue of speech, which is already pretty good at. Try playing at improvisation. You can teach your child music theory, as a steam engineer taught his child the word kilowatt, but your child isn't going anywhere until it makes up its own theory of language, music or science in its own head. The third stage of learning is doing things for oneself and seeing how they work out. I haven't experienced that stage of music learning, but I have spent a life doing science. The plumber comes to mend a pipe. He turns off the water and cuts out a damaged section of pipe. I ask him how long the pipe is that is just cut off.
It's a foot.
Then he takes a wooden folding ruler with brass joints and black lines and numbers from his pocket and says,
11.5 inches. Guessing is best when guessing is right.
Then and there, I learned that guessing is a good thing and that guesses can be checked by measuring. I didn't know it, but Sir Isaac Newton said,
No great discovery was ever made without a bold guess.
When the plumber finished his job, he showed me how to make a siphon. I was gobsmacked. I could make water run uphill. I went to the bathroom and took the rubber shower attachment off the taps. Then I went into the kitchen diner and made a siphon by climbing on a chair to get to the sink. I made a good siphon and a mighty fine mess. My mother came in and was really angry. I thought she was going to spank me, but Daddy said,
"I'll deal with this."
He took me into the yard. I was sure he was going to beat the living daylights out of me, but he gave me a galvanized bucket and a couple of empty tin cans. Then he cut a few handy lengths off the garden hose. He said,
"Don't ever make a siphon in the house. If you want to make a siphon, do it here in the yard. Who knows, you might figure out how to make a waterfall down the steps."
Many days later, after getting soaked through and muddy, I had the galvanized bucket set up on the top step with a section of garden hose going from the bucket to a tin can on the middle step, and another section of hose going from the can on the middle step to a can on the bottom step, and another section of hose going from the can on the bottom step into the yard. As luck would have it, my daddy had given me just enough containers and hoses to make a waterfall of siphons that cascades down all the steps and into the yard, where it makes a lake. On reflection, I don't think my father expected me to use the garden hose to fill the bucket. My mummy is incandescent with rage. My daddy handles it by putting on his wellies and clearing up while I eat the candy he's given me. Daddy is supposed to be repairing the brickwork on the back of the house, but he plays with me instead. He sets up some bricks on the top step in the yard and puts a long plank on the bricks. He has a short section of plank going into the yard and a long section going into the lane behind our house. I know this is not right. Seesaws should be held up in the middle. My father stands astride the short section and has me sit on the long section of plank, the same distance from the bricks as he is. He takes his legs off the ground. I am catapulted into the air. It's frightening, but fear triggers the faculty of memory. Daddy tells me to move back. I shuffle away from him and he slowly rises off the ground. He's a big fat man and I can lift him up. I shuffle back and forth, lifting and lowering my daddy.
This is called a lever. If you had a long enough lever and a firm place to stand, you could move the earth.
I don't care about the earth. I can lift my daddy and he is really fat. It's nearly Christmas. In our kitchen diner, the Christmas tree lights are flashing on and off as I play with a key in the lock of a small suitcase. I run into the hall when my daddy is beside the fuse box with his tools. Daddy, Daddy, I turned the Christmas tree lights on.
Oh, good.
At the age of 4, I don't understand sarcasm.
Are you sure it was you?
I'm not sure, so I run back into the kitchen diner and start twiddling the key in the lock. Sometimes I seem to turn the lights on, but mostly not. Sometimes I seem to turn the lights off, but mostly not. I remember that Daddy makes electricity in a power station. He's beside the fuse box with his tools. I run back into the hall. Did Daddy turn the lights on?
Yes.
I've just run through the whole of the scientific method. I observed that I could turn on Christmas tree lights by turning a key in a suitcase lock. I reported my observational study to a scientific authority, my daddy. My hypothesis that turning a key in a suitcase lock turns Christmas tree lights on was challenged. I conducted an experiment, trying to turn the lights on and off. The experiment failed. Then I came up with an alternative theoretical explanation. My daddy turned the lights on by mending the fuse. I had successfully distinguished correlation from causation, something babies do naturally, but I had done it by reasoning and experiment. I had done it by science. Think about your life from your earliest memory to when you started school. What influences were you surrounded by? At age 5, children, even prodigies, are pretty useless musicians and scientists, but that is about to change.